right, everybody, welcome to Piney Woods School Workshop Series. So Piney Woods leadership is under the leadership of President Will Crossley of Piney Woods. And welcome to our Piney Woods School Workshop Series. It was funded by the Racial Equity Justice Conservation Cooperative Agreement. And the partners here we have Up and Farms, USDA NRCS, NCAT, and Piney Woods. Some of our Piney Woods representatives here. Next slide. So, of course, we had registration at 9 o'clock. 9:30 is the introduction as to what I'm giving right now. We're going to go into a series of soil samplings. And then we're going to have an 11:30 discussion. Then we're going to have lunch. And then we're going to have a 1 o'clock interpreting a soil test. So one of the things we want y'all to be able to understand is the world beneath your feet. The soil. Understand how the soil works. What encompasses soil. How to know if you have good soil, bad soil. How does your soil drain on your particular farm? We want to be able to educate you on those different types of processes that goes on in the world beneath your feet, which is the soil as to what we're standing on. And we want y'all to be able to ask questions, look for understandings, and most important, have fun with this workshop. And if there's anything, no question is a dumb question, but please feel free to ask any question you like. So we're going to talk about the soil biology and the fertility. Those are some of the things we're going to look at on the farm. And some of the presenters are going to be Delaney Johnson, Lee Jones with NRCS, Raquel Woods, which is myself, Dex Hughes, Farm Technology Specialist with Up and Farms, David Watkins, the CEO of Up and Farms, and Kenny Cannon, who's going to be a contractor installer. Next slide. Understanding soil fertility and biology for production and conservation services. We'll be doing that here on the campus of Piney Woods. Those are some of the workshops that are going to be coming up on March 27th, which that is today. Water management on the farm, which is Saturday, April 6th. Animal care and conservation practices, which will be back here at Piney Woods on April 17th, which that is going to be a good workshop because you get a chance to interact with some animals. We're going to have animals here on hand. You get a chance to see, touch, understand how the animal works, understand the process of the animal. And crop rotation theory and practice. You know, you can't plant the same thing in one place. You always have to rotate your crops. And there are many different reasons as to why we do that. So we hopefully get more people out, invite someone, bring someone. We want to get everybody out to learn about these series because May 15th will probably be the last series that we have within this agreement. But other workshops will be going on because we're going to be constantly writing to get more workshops and more funding to actually put on these workshops. And they're going to be in multiple different places across the state of Mississippi. So please feel free and welcome to ask all questions. We'll have all of our information and we'll have your email address to follow up with more workshops that will be coming up in the future. So that's all for me right now. We're going to get started with the world of soil.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Rock. Thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Yeah, thank y'all for being patient as we get everything together and wait to see if any more stragglers were coming in. But we had a big crowd last time. We had like 35 people, so you never know how many people are going to show up. But we are really excited today. We've been putting a lot of work into a presentation, thinking through the content, but we also want to meet you where you are. So I think it would be great. I'm David, okay? This is Delaney, and this is Lee. All right, now, don't let us fool you up here. I don't know anything. These guys are the scientists over here. They know everything. You know, they know so much about soil that they can answer your questions. So that's really, we have stuff planned. We have a lot of material that we want to share with you, but the most important thing is we want to make sure that we understand what you need. So we are helping solve your problems. And that doesn't just exist here today, but it extends beyond today and onto your farm. We can come out, we can help assess, we can look at it, and that's part of what we're contracted by NRCS and USDA to do. Just want to ask real quick, where are you guys? Where is everybody in your kind of farming status? What are you doing? What do you want to get out of today? So we can kind of help tailor that.
Well, I personally just want to know how to, I grow vegetables, but I don't want to always be taking out of the soil. I want to know how I can put back, without using fertilizers, without using, costly inputs, back into the soil so that I can continue to get good crops, on an ongoing basis. I want to know if there's any practices that I'm doing that I think is good, that's actually harmful, so I can stop doing those things. And just, I've heard that, don't focus on growing vegetables, but focus on having healthy soil, and the vegetables will be healthy, right? Yeah.
That's a conversation we have every day. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to zero in and focus on how to have the best, healthiest soil.
You got the right mindset.
Yeah.
Yes, we will rally to answer those questions. That's great. And if we're not answering some of that directly, will remind us, and we will get back on that, because that's really what we're here to answer. Right. Regenerative farming. Yeah. How to help regenerate the soil without as many inputs. Right. Exactly. Does anybody else have anything they want to share? Kind of where you are, what you are looking.
My name is Mary, and my grandfather had a farm out by the reservoir, and there's land out there, and I'm just interested in getting that land. We had a huge farm to start farming it again. And I'm just interested in Mother Nature, because I've been hearing a lot of things about the soil that is very depleted of a lot of nutrients. And that to get, and I try to be very much in tune with nature and in the soil, because it's I think it has to do also with it gives a lot to us. I'm just interested because it gives a lot to us, right. How we are treating it, right. how we are behaving with it and respecting it. And that is my main reason for being here.
Gotcha. That's great. Absolutely. And have you been farming a little bit? You've been growing some stuff? Okay. Great. Well, we will. We have some whiteboards up here. We can kind of help you work on some things about your own farms too. It'd be great to know. Actually, before we ask that question, would you like to tell us a little bit about where you are? Yeah.
I'm Alicia. I actually live in Biloxi and came up for two reasons. One, I'm a new staff member at SAFON, which represents Black farmers across the South.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm trying to train my ear, because I'm not a farmer by nurture, but of course,
Wait, what was your background?
My background is fundraising and grant writing and just basically writing.
Gotcha. Well, mine's in theater, so, I'll see you one and raise you.
Yes. So anyway, but the staff has been very generous to help me realize that we all come from farmers, and so I have personally I have some raised beds at home, and I'm wanting to build in-ground in front, and there's just a lot of clay and stuff, so I want to figure out. I'm kind of starting from scratch there. I want to
right.
And I want to do it the right way the first time, and so I'm just basically what you said. I want to make sure that the soil is healthy, so whatever I put in there will grow. That's great.
That's great. Have any of you taken a soil test?
Yes.
Okay. No. Yes. You are like, yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I test my soil every day. I'm going out there talking to it. Okay. So do you do it annually? Or
I did it once when I think my second year in. I have not done it yet for this season. I need to do it. But it was very good. I only lacked sulfur.
Okay.
And that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have a decent comprehension of the soil test?
Yes.
When they give it, okay, you know what you're looking for
Yeah.
when they bring it back to you.
So that's something you have to have somebody else do, or is it something you can do for yourself?
Well, you collect these samples yourself, and you work with your local extension office there, and if, depending on where you're located, and we can provide you that contact information. And then you go and get the sample boxes and the form in order to enter your information about your land, your intended crops that you want to plant. You complete that and fill the boxes, and we can go through a little quick roundabout to show you how to collect them and mix it. And then you go take that back to the extension office, and then they can send it off for you to Mississippi State, and then it'll be about 4 to 6 weeks, and you'll get your report back on what your soil condition is, your fertility, your pH, all your different nutrients that are available, and your information on your intended crops that you want to plant. And that'll get you started.
Yeah, but you will need to get it to them quickly. They're gonna take their time, get it back to you, but you have to get it to them, quickly after you take your sample or your samples.
Samples.
Yeah, if you're growing in multiple places, or you have a big area, or even if you're growing in a small place but you have a really diversified set of crops, you may want to do multiple samples and test different areas. Soil can be very different, in just small spaces, and it just depends on your productivity, what you want to get out of that.
And also, she was mentioning, I think you had said something about clay.
Yeah.
Having clay. How deep you go? Like, could you say, like, when you're taking your soil sample, like, how deep should you go? Should you just stay within a certain amount of inches?
You should try to stay right in that rooting zone, and you have your topsoil, your surface, in most cases, about 4 inches on average here in the central Mississippi. And then right below that, in that zone, probably your 6 to 10 inch zone, that's where you want to take your samples, collect your samples, because that's where your roots are going to be more abundant and concentrated at.
So when you got your soil test back that first time, how did that impact what you did with, I think you were doing fertilizer and you're wanting to cut back, or you didn't do fertilizer?
No, I wasn't. It was like virgin land, it was timber, it had just been cleared and broken up. And I wanted to plant, I wanted to know what was going on, if I needed to have any,
Gotcha. Did you bring your test with you, by the way?
No.
Not much, okay. Do you remember what your pH was
I don't.
of your land? Okay,
I don't.
okay.
I remember going through and everything was good except the sulfur. That's all I remember. I needed sulfur.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, Delaney, you want to talk about soil for a little bit?
Well, a little bit. Just a second. It was a few seconds there.
So we have a wealth of slides here and material and conversation pieces. But again, we really want to answer your questions. We want to make sure that the things we're talking about are really addressing the things that you want and need to know. And if we need to off-road and do that, by all means, let's do it. Delaney, do you want this, or you want me to do that?
Yeah, we'll try it, and then we'll see how that works. These your glasses, right? Okay.
Did they help or hurt?
Well, I know some are different. Probably help me. Today, good morning again. Good morning. Yes, I'm glad y'all were able to attend and come on up, get close.
Yeah, please, y'all don't worry about that. Just come on in and have a seat. Y'all sit right on up front. It's not, you're not interrupting anything. Actually, since you're just now joining us, please go ahead, have a seat. Have a seat. I think we have waters now, by the way, and we still have breakfast. If anybody wants anything, please help yourself. Restroom is back over here, and We are asking everybody, take a minute, settle down, settle in, and we'll come back and we'll get some information about you and what your farm is like, or what you're trying to do, what your garden is like in a minute. Okay? Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, David. And without further delaying, because I know we're excited about what the subject matter is today, and that's the reason we're here. Soil fertility and soil biology. They're synonymous. One can't do without the other one. And soil biology. Biology, we see biology all around us. We see it above ground. We see the animals, we see the grass, we see the trees, we see the habitat, we see weeds, we see crops. Okay, but what we want to do today is look a little more internally at the biology, and some of it we can see with the naked eye, the physical eye, and some of it we can, and the most of it we cannot see. We cannot see a whole world. That's what the science says, the world of soil. Okay, most of soil that is beneficial, most of soil that is active, most of soil that is working, most of soil that is living, we cannot see it. And it's working for us continuous. Even during the cool season, even during that night time, even when we're asleep, it's still working. Like our bodies, our internal organs, our lungs, our digestive tracts, our heart, our liver, kidneys, they're still working for you. You sleep, we sleep, you know, get knocked out. Well, it's still going, it's still doing its job. So, and we see the same thing in the soil world, because soil is a living, dynamic, natural system. And we're looking at the soil as a whole, but we're going to look at that living component, that what we call living. Soil is fascinating, and is the foundation of life. Somebody said that. I think you said that. It's the foundation. If you did have a foundation, like the slab right here where we sit, where we're standing on, if some had the condition, the soil had to be prepped in order to lay this slab right here, because it is a foundation below the foundation that we're standing on. That's it. It's life. Soil is a dynamic entity, constantly changing. It is limited in natural resources that renew slowly over time, and it's probably over time. It's not in our lifetime. If we're going to get to it, if we deplete some part of it, we will not see it again in our lifetime, several lifetimes. Soil is unconsolidated mineral organic material that's immediately below the surface of the earth, and it's a natural medium that serves for plant growth. And we're talking about the organic material. That organic material is what we look at as our topsoil, that top layer. That's the part that we are interested in today as agriculturalists, as environmentalists. That is the part that where life begins. That's what layer that produces our food, our fiber, our seed germination is that top layer, and we'll look at that in a minute. But if we didn't have that, then soil would not be as we know it. Because what we say is soil is a living, dynamic, natural system that is capable of supporting plants. Okay, if you didn't have that top soil to germinate the seed to begin with, in order for it to take on life, then can we call it soil? No. You just call it, what's the other name for soil, Mr. Thompson? Dirt. Oh, boy. It ain't no good, it's just dirt, man. You can't have nothing to do with it. You're allowed to call it dirt at that time. You can't grow a plant there and stuff, man. Okay, how soil happens. Over time, we have different soil forming factors acting upon what we call bedrock. We know that soil was consolidated bedrock at some point in time in the Earth's origin, in the Earth's formation. And over time, we have what's called climatic factors that act upon that soil in order for it to act upon that rock, for it to develop into an unconsolidated material. Unconsolidated material over time, it turns into something that you can squeeze, you can break, it turns into clods, and over time it has a little duff on top of it here, what we call our topsoil. That's top layer. That's where we see everything starts to grow and germinate and provides nutrients and provide that health for that particular plant. So we're looking at the topsoil, we're looking at the subsurface, we're looking at the subsoil and on down. And some soils are what we call deep. Some soils, they go way on down here in the coastal plains in where we live here in the central Mississippi, in what we call the southern coastal plains physiographic region or geographic region. We have deep soils relatively. They're going down several feet. But we have some like up in the north central part of the state, or up in the Rockies where we have rock right underneath. So we have a little material and then you got rock, bedrock. So, but then still people try to live on those areas and build houses and whatnot. But one thing they can't do, they can't crop it because it's just, you know, it's too difficult. But this is material we have here in the southeast. It's really deep material. You can till it, you can go on down. But basically, everything that's down here is the foundation that gives rise to this top layer here. That top layer is the most critical layer as far as our sustainability, our livelihood, our food and fiber, everything. And also we heard what carbon change, global warming, and all those different things. If this was not here, this is where all the interaction takes place, right up in that upper part there. Carbon storage, carbon sequestration, carbon retention. All those different things take place. And they will not take place in and of itself. We're going to look at what we talked about first, what the topic class today, soil biology. Biology is what drives the system. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a minute here. And one of the things about soil biology needs, what are they, when astronauts and astronomers go look for life on other planets, what the first thing they try to identify is? Water, because they know that's what? Life. If it wasn't water, then life couldn't sustain. So you gotta have that water. So they look for that water. So the same, no difference here. We looking at the water, we're looking at temperature, we're looking at the microorganisms, and we're looking at the macroorganisms. What macro is are the ones that you can see, like nematodes and earwigs and earthworms and stuff. But microorganisms are the ones that you can't see, like protozoa and those different types of size organisms. But they're still just as important. They're still functioning, operating, generating nutrients, and eating carbon and breaking down carbon in order for them to produce the nutrients that the plants need. And then you have what we call parent material. That's what we talked about, the bedrock. Then you have parent material. Parent material is where this becomes unconsolidated over time. There was rock at one time, parent material. Then it became weathered, and then it became something particular type of soil formation. Soil layers, you have your topsoil. I say your organic soil. The organic is still your decomposition of decomposed plant remains. They're in some stage of decomposition, and the decomposition is, we'll make that statement right now, decomposition is just happening by itself. What causes decomposition? What's the activity, what's the energy or the culprit behind decomposition of plant remains, residue, plant matter and stuff?
Erosion.
Bacteria, the organism, microorganisms. They serve in that decomposition and breakdown of that plant matter, plant remains and stuff, your organic material. That's what serves in that breakdown of the decomposition process. It don't just happen by itself, start withering and decaying and decomposing. You think it's just doing it over time. Something is causing that. Something is at work doing that breakdown and stuff. So that's what we got to see. But these are things that you can't see, but you know something's happening. You know something's taking place. I can't see nothing. It's dying, it's withering up and stuff. It's going away. What's going on? But this is something that the soil is actively making that happen. And over time, you won't be able to recognize it. Parent material and bedrock, we said. Our horizon, that's your unweathered parent material. The sea horizon is that layer that has become unconsolidated. It's beginning the early stages of your soil formation. The B horizon is your subsoil. That's your subsoil. Now your subsoil is where, as the material goes down, your moisture retention, your plant roots, they tap out in that subsoil. That's where it gets its water from. That's where it gets its water supply from. And that serves as an aquitard to slow down that water downward movement in order for plants to have time to take that water up and be able to utilize it. Otherwise, you just had topsoil, it'll just go on down. So everything has a reason. Everything is rhyme to the reason. And we, as agriculturists, as economists, we have come to understand that. E horizon, that's right below your topsoil, okay? And then your A horizon, that's your mineral soil we looked at years ago. This is your A horizon. This top part right here, this is your A horizon, where your grass and your plants grow out of that darker material. And we're going to talk about that. That's kind of a light, it's darker than down here, but it's a light brown, it's lighter, but we prefer for it to be even darker, because the darker it is, it's telling us something. It's giving us information on the health of it, the fertility of it. But that is your topsoil, okay? And then your organic layer, okay? Organic loose, partially decayed organic matter. Okay, that's what we said it was. Okay, organic matter. Now, why would we say bacteria? Why would they want to be in this zone right here? And then, I mean, if you see butterflies flying around in your garden, they're not just flying around to be pretty and stuff. They got that for a reason. When you see things in life, when we eat, when you sit down to the dinner table, we're not just eating just to be eating. We're eating for what? Nourishment. We're eating for to get our nourishment. And the food might be good, the food might be flavorful, but at the same time, our body's extracting something from it. It's getting something good coming out of it. Some proteins, fiber, something to energize us, something to provide that energy. So when we see the organic matter, the bacteria and the other type of microorganisms, when they decomposing that material, they getting something good out of it. You know, it ain't just breaking down, just be breaking it down. So they're getting carbon. Carbon is what they are extracting. Carbon is their energy source. Carbon is what they're getting to generally energize them. That's their food source, okay? So in the food world and the whole world we think about, then we say carbon reduction, carbon footprint, carbon retention. Then they are utilizing that carbon, so it's being sequestered through that process that's preventing it from going back into the atmosphere. So we say, you know, the more crops, the more green you have, more green cover you have, green spaces, then that's helping all to help reduce that carbon footprint. But at the same time, it's providing nutrients to the soil in order for it to be able to uptake, the plants to be able to uptake those nutrients and for their use in our growth and our maturity and our health and development. So it's a cycle. Everything has a rhyme to the reason. No energy exerted in life just to be doing it for the fun. It's doing it for a reason. So and no different in soil. It's everything is happening for a reason. Okay, soil is a natural body composed of solids, liquids, and gases. It occurs on land surface, occupied space, has horizons and layers. Okay, so all soils have these different qualifying characteristics, and they all are situated for a purpose. And the better we understand those are reasons and rationale why soils are developed the way they do and how it occurs on the landscapes, the better we can be stewards and better conservationists of this natural resource. Because once it's gone, what do they say? It's gone. You ain't gonna see it no more in your lifetime. So
it takes tens of thousands of years for that bedrock to weatherize and come up to the top.
Right. Yep, that's it. And it you know, it varies among climatic areas and stuff, versus North Pole or versus the southeast, the central part of the country, and versus down in the humid areas. But in all, it takes a long time for soils to restore itself. And we are one of the main culprits. Man, his activities helps retard soil from being able to function on its own. We always want to help it. We always want to help soil. The way we want to help soil is by what? We add stuff to it to help move it along faster. We can't wait till to do its own thing and wait till the oven time, the cake bake. We got to go check the oven. Got to go open the oven. You can't wait till it gets done. You got to check it and stuff. And then next thing you know, it's slump. Then you got another problem.
Did you have a question?
I was just, my daughter's just studying with this guy. He's called, I don't know if you've heard of him, Zach Bush. Anybody heard of Zach Bush?
Not familiar.
He was just saying that a lot of soil depletion is happening because we are not breathing through our nose. They're breeding mouth breeders, I'm sorry. He said that most people are breeding, and it's causing a lot of destruction of the Earth's carbon or something.
Yeah, carbon, yeah, right.
It's very interesting, his thesis, yeah.
Yeah, we take in
Is there any way that it can be, that you can put something back in the soil to make it, to replenish it?
That's what we trying to describe. how you-
Fortunately, I'm sorry, that's it. No, there's not. We're all done here.
We're done.
Yes, there are ways, and
Yeah.
that's what we're leading up to. Give me a little bit of a
Kind of put
primer
that
on that.
back into the soil and let the soil retain it. Yes, we'll get to that. And the fact that stigma soil horizon are the layers and additional material. Okay. Soil forming processes. We have soil forming processes we said earlier, that those bedrock, it starts with the climate, the time, the parent material. Like Dave was saying, that time is, essence, and parent material and relief and organism. Relief, what it means slope, how steep an area is, the aspect, how the sun hits it in the morning time, how long the sun stays on it to work on that decomposition process, and the organisms. Your microorganisms, what we talked about, your biology, fungi, algae, all that acting on those bedrocks in order to break it down, in order to make soil, and then you climate, how warm it is, how cold it is. In the cold climates, it takes longer for things to break down because what? Your activity, your microbiological activity slows down, so therefore it takes longer in your climatic zones because you put food in the freezer, what? It stays, right? But you let it stay in the refrigerator at a warmer temperature, somebody gonna have to leave that house. It got to go, or you got to go. One of the two. Because it's gonna start smelling on you. So your microbes are actively working. Yes, I'm saying.
So the soil formation process is from the bottom coming upward?
That's correct.
Okay. I always thought it was there.
Yeah.
I thought it was stuff that fell like on the ground and they decomposed and
That's that top soil.
Did you see that slide earlier that had the water and temperature and macro and micro? So it's mineralization is what this process is. So it happens over a long period. Think of it like a mountain. That's what you got down there.
Below, right?
Yeah, and the water comes and the temperature raises and then starts breaking things up a little bit. And then things begin to release from it. And those things begin to combine with other things, and then they become sources of food, and they get broken down more and more, and those things start to rise up. But that is a long-term process for that to happen. And like Delaney said, when it's gone, it's not easy to replace.
Right.
We don't have time for it.
No, I ain't got time for it. So the best thing to do is try to hold on to it and maintain it and protect it while it's here, because. Yes, ma'am.
What's parent material again?
The parent material is just immediate after that weather bedrock material turns into a unconsolidated form. It's not solid anymore. It's not rock anymore. It's become a material that you could work with. Yeah. But at one time, this is rock.
The layers above it.
Yeah.
At one time,
like, as it breaks down, these are like the child layers of that bottom layer. But there's the bedrock, which is parent. Yeah.
It takes time for that to process to take place, and like we said, it's but once it does, then you have soil. Climate, time, parent material, relief. In climate, we live in South Central. We live in what we call a climate is warm and humid. It never gets too cold. It never gets too hot. You might have a few extreme days, and you might have a few extreme hot days. But for the most part, it's livable year round. So it's warm and humid. In organic material, it's some activity that's taking place year round because it don't freeze like it does up in the Alaska or up in the North Pole. Then we have parent material. Plants and animals, microorganisms contribute to the soil formation. Okay. Organisms. The landscape shapes and slopes can influence how water flows and how wet an area stays. some areas stay wet all the time. You have wetlands, you have wet places in your yard that are lawn that are wetter, stays wet all the time sometimes and stuff. So those areas are become inundated where you don't have the breakdown like you would because you change the oxygen content, what we call aerobic conditions, where you don't have any oxygen, so things tend to stay like it is for longer periods because you don't have that exchange and you break down your everything needs oxygen in order to start decaying and breaking down. But where it's not, then it takes longer for that material to break down and decompose. Then your parent material is the original material we talked about, and then you got okay, what constitutes soil particles is in a variety of shapes, sizes, and can be flat, round, or irregular. And then we looked at what we looked at our soil particles. We look at this as soil clod, and really what it does is it breaks into different shapes. See how that's soil structure. It breaks into different, but it still has shape, but it's broken down into even further shapes versus what you have your topsoil. So the particle size can vary greatly. You have your sand, you have silt and clay. Sand, silt, and clay are your mineral size fraction, and it is not life. Sand is your mineral, but mineral is not life. Okay, well then we have the organic part where we talk about the soil surface. That's your life part, that topsoil, that top layer, that's your life. Okay, but this down here has very little to no life, but it does provide a purpose. It retards water movement from going down, and it keeps that water right there in that root zone, so you have opportunity for plants to take it up, and it also provides anchor to all your plant roots in order to keep them standing straight up, you know. Say for instance a tree, you know, even though on the larger extreme, trees couldn't stand if it just grew at the topsoil here, so they have to go down in the ground in order to be able to sustain. Okay, what constitutes the soil? Water, 40%, 50% air, and 50% sand, silt, and clay. So this is pretty much scale relatively what soil contains in a soil body. We see that concentration in average soil types. We see that concentration: water and air, 50%, 50% mineral, and 5% organic matter. 5% organic matter is the most important component of the soil as far as agriculture, as far as soil carbon, as far as our food and fiber, seed germination. That 5% organic material, that's where, like we say, where the microbes, the bacteria get their food from. That 5% layer of duff right on top, that's where they get their energy from. And that's what generates nutrients for the plants. So we're looking at, if this is gone, that's why we say it's so important. If this is gone, then we wouldn't have what we call soil. It'll just be pretty much dirt, construction material. Now the engineers can use it to build your foundation with, build different things. But as far as it being able to produce a good crop, then it would be pretty relatively difficult. Now it could, but you have to apply so much fertilizer, so much commercial amendments in order to get a crop to grow. In order for it to grow and reach maturity, you want to make sure you hold on to that organic material. Preventing erosion, like you said one time, erosion, preventing that from eroding. If this washes off, then erodes, then we have lost our whole effort as far as being a good agriculture, being a good farmer, being a good producer. We want to hold on to that top layer, that organic layer, and that A layer. Mineral soils, mineral is the basic structure. So. Okay, organic riches. Wait a minute, go back.
I found that amazing that 50% of what we're looking at right there is air and water.
Yeah.
You know, in good healthy soil, 50% of it is air and water.
Air and water, right. In good condition. And that's something we can't see. How can that be? But if you take this up and realize it has some moisture in it and it has air in it. But if you take it and you put it in the oven for for a few hours overnight, and then everything, the moisture dries out, it shrinks, then the air place dries out of it. Then you have this 50% here, that's what's left, because your air and water is gone out of it. So we can see how that, something we take for granted, something we can't see, but then really, anyway, how can that be? But that's true.
It's like so much of what we're trying to do when we're growing about helping to create that environment where air and water exist down here.
It can exist in harmony, and in this distribution, in this measurement, that water 40%, air 40%, soil, the solids, sand, silt, and clay 45%, and then you got the organic matter. So if we can have that distribution in our lands, in our crop fields, in our gardens, then that's what we try to, the goal we try to meet. And try to sustain that goal. You know, just can't have it. And how do you sustain it? And we have conservation practices that we recommend to install or apply, such as residue management, nutrient management, all these different things that there are practices that are encouraged through your soil health that the agency USDA helps provide that assistance to you in installing or applying those type of practices on your ground, and we'll give you that information later. And the league can also is to contact the help with that as far as getting those practices from the federal government that provides that assistance to you through your federal dollars that can help maintain and achieve that objective right there. Okay, water, air. Okay, these are soil types, soil orders, more or less. And these are what we have come as me as a soil scientist. This is what I have referred to as far as classification of our soils. All soils have some relationship, and they have some differences based upon what? Their location, their geographical region. The soils up even here in the Mississippi. The soils in the Mississippi Delta are different from the soils down on the Gulf Coast, right? You know that's different, okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, how many of us have gone like to Tuscaloosa, on to Birmingham, where we see? That's the Blackland Prairie. We see a difference there. We see cedar trees, scrappy. You don't see no cropland there because of that shallow bedrock, shallow limestone, shallow calcareous material. So we have different, so this is the way we look at it. We have those different soils where we're looking at, like we were talking about going like up toward Tuscaloosa, vertical soils, heavy clay, shrink swell. But mostly here where we are now, what we have more or less is ultra soils and alpha soils here in the uplands here in this part of the Mississippi, what we call this, and they are red. They are pretty much long, have some clay content in them, and they are gently sloping to nearly level or strongly sloping, but at the same time they have some identity. They have some distinction. That's why we look at soil orders. The location where they develop in a geographical region, and also soils out in California, soils in the northwest part of the country have a lot of volcano activity. So they are also, and those are like jello soils and jello soils, okay? Those volcanic type.
Jello soils, yeah. Those, like, there we go.
Yeah.
They're on the next slide.
Yeah, in cold climates and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, but it's so that's where you start breaking it down. You're looking at the soil orders right there. Okay. Okay, now you're looking at history soils where you have those like down in Florida, Everglades, or in the coast, Mississippi Gulf Coast. You've seen those marsh zones down I-10, and marsh areas. Then you have those type of history soils that stay wet all the time and just form marsh. You can't stand on it. You gotta you'll sink down and stuff. And you got spotor soils where you have that whole bleach white layer, and you have those areas, that zones that are very infertile. They're not good for any type of agricultural activity because they're very low in natural fertility.
You can see that just from the soil texture there, right?
Right. That's
Over here, looking at that picture, how different it is from the other ones.
Yeah.
You can't imagine weeds
Right.
or roots really going down in that.
You don't see any dark material. You don't see an organic carbon, organic matter up there. You just see just a bleach type of system. And the soils. These are your, I think, whether from volcanic material, that's what I was trying to get at, not the gels, but andesol, volcanic material that these soils developed on. They're not stable, they are easy to slide, they get wet and rainy, they'll slide, you see those landslides, mudslides. That's what causes that, because they're not stable, they're not made out of much clay and sand and silt, they're made out of more or less a volcanic material that has been weathered. Oxysoils, red soils that have been oxidized in Hawaii and Puerto Rico and places like that.
Is that what's in Georgia? Every time I go to Georgia, I see a lot of red.
Those will be your ultrasols and alpha soils, and you don't have oxysols because they're more or less out west. But more or less you have your red ultrasols because they're red because they're high in iron content, ferric iron concentrations, and that's why they are weathered. They are older soils, more mature soils, because the iron has come to a form. The color is not a precipitate any longer. It's become the matrix color of these soils because of the oxidation that has taken place, because they have been out of the, I guess they have been exposed to the weather. They have not been buried like old lake beds or anything like that. They have been mature soils that have been have age on them, that have developed that color because the iron has been oxidized. Okay, aerosols out in the arid regions, out in the Midwest and West Pacific. Ultrasoils here in like we say, here in the Southeast, we have more ultrasoils here. That's our dominant soils, ultrasoils and ultrasoils, because it's the mature soils here that it's been out from under the weather and it's been exposed for longer periods of time. Molly soils, a darker color, and then grasses because of the dark mollic colors. Now they are a good rich soil because it's a darker shaded color, but at the same time they are real fragile because that mollic layer, what is diagnostic, once it's tilled a few times, and the molly soil is gone, but left undisturbed is some molly soil that stays in place. But once it becomes disturbed, nutrients there like brown bread or soils are wholesome and nourishing. But once it's been disturbed, then that mollic color that describes it, that distinguishes it from other soil orders has been removed, so you no longer have that molly soil. It's good as long as it's in place and not disturbed. And alpha soils are intensely acidic, ultra soils, less acidic than other soils. They more or less alkaline, more have calcareous. They more or less have a higher pH value, whereas older soils have a pH more naturally growing as optimum for plant growth, like 5.5 to 6.5. Whereas alpha soils may have a 6.5 to 7.0 average in their pH, in their CEC, because it has more or less higher clay concentration, and they more or less have more cations that subject matter that's later on that can adhere to the soil particles that attract more ions, which increases the pH and is less absorbed to the surfaces, and it's harder for plants to extract it because of that nature of that particular molecule.
Does everyone know what pH is? I see a quizzical look over here.
You mentioned it.
I said, yes, quizzical.
But it tells you whether something's acidic or alkaline, and how you have to
Right.
That's right.
That's right.
It's a different thing when you talk about pH of water than you talk about pH in soil.
Yeah, right.
Different thing there. But when we're talking about pH in soil, there's like an optimum range,
Right.
For growing.
For growing, crop growth.
But we have some slides on that, a little later. But we want to make sure everybody just kind of understands that, you get it to acidic and, we talk about plants liking pH or something like that, talk about blueberries liking more acidic soils.
Right.
Actually, they don't care about the pH. They care about what's present when that pH is at that level. All right, that's what they care about. They care about the microbiology that exists there at that pH because that's what those blueberries more naturally need. All right, so that's what you're really talking about when you're talking about with that plant range, and we get out of that range one way or another. The plants have some diversity in what they want, but there is a general range. But you get outside of that range, and then you're talking about not being able to have some of your core micronutrients, some of your trace elements that those plants really need to survive. You know, that they don't need a lot of them, but they need enough. They need just enough to survive. And that pH gets out of whack, you lose those trace elements, and your plants are not going to be as healthy. They're not going to be as productive, and you know, they're going to be more prone to having disease.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Did I say that right, Lee? Okay, I've been learning. I've been listening to these guys.
You catching on, you catching on.
Okay, I'm catching on. Okay, good. Do you have anything to add to that?
To go along with what you were saying about the pH and the microorganisms that exist at certain pH levels, the pH also plays a role in the facilitation of transferring nutrients through the plants through chemical reactions.
You said about the blueberries.
Absolutely.
I feel miserably with blueberries, but I was watching YouTube videos and they said if you get the pH right, then it creates an environment where the roots can uptake the nutrients that are in the soil. So that's what you have to kind of play with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, and it gets more detailed, no, Lee, we don't, but that's right now. That's the understanding that we want to y'all have the right understanding that the pH is critical. If the pH is not right for certain crops, then you try to apply fertilizer, try to apply amendments. It's no good. You're throwing your money away. Because it's not being able to be utilized by the plants because it's being intercepted by the hydrogen ion activity concentration in the soil, and that's why we try to reduce that, manage that pH in order for, like I say, 5.5 to 6.5. That's your optimum pH that you want to try to maintain in order for most crops here, especially crops here in the Southeast.
Has anybody ever applied lime?
I have.
You have, okay. And what did it come from a soil test that you decided to do that?
Yes, from Mississippi State.
From Mississippi State. And what was your initial reading, and what did they tell you to do?
They told me that when they came out there, I think the pH of the soil wasn't good enough, so that helped boost the pH of some calcium carbonate.
Was it too high or too low?
My pH was too high.
Your pH was too high?
Yes.
Okay, so there are different kinds of lime that you use to bring your pH down if it's too high, or to bring it back up if it's too low, right?
Yeah, sulfur is what you do reducing the pH, right? And lime is what you do to increase it. Now, low pH, like you say, had a pH of 4 or 4.0. That's more or less is too acid for most crops here. Yeah, you want to get it above that. Yep. Okay.
We had a question.
So you determine your pH by, when you take it, you get your soil tested, and is there some type of test that you can do over time, like that you can bring home and test over time, or do you always have to have it?
Yeah, this is a real field, and we'll look at this evening. It's a field test, quick. That's you can get a sample and put some powder on it, and then put some fluid on it, and it'll give you a good field indication of what your pH is. It's a field pH test kit. We'll look at that this evening. And what are the price of these things next?
I got 3 of them for $180, so maybe it's
About $60.
a little bit.
Yeah. But that's what it's called, soil pH test kit.
About 60 a pop.
It may be cheaper to get the soil test from Mississippi State, but you have to take your soil samples yourself. Generally, you have to grab your soil samples, but you can test things on your own too. But you're generally going to get more accurate results if you send it off to the lab, and ultimately, it's probably going to be cheaper. depending on what you get.
Absolutely.
And how quickly does pH change? Like how often do you need to test?
Well, one thing about pH, when we say lime, it takes a while because your microbes have to get their field first before it's surrendered to available to the plants. So we actually, about 3 months, with lime, right after you harvest your spring crop, you warm season crop, probably by October, you would do your lime, and then it's being able to work in, and by March, late February or that following year, it should be available and to have brought your pH in your field to where it needs to be. It's about 3 to 4 months you need to apply your lime program before you're planting your next cash crop.
So those are, it is amazing because you're thinking about this stuff, but you're really thinking about next season. Mm-hmm. When you start getting into this, you gotta have that soil test. Absolutely. And you gotta be prepared to react to your pH, because if you're not doing that, you're not going to be able to grow what you want to grow, So, yeah, we've talked to a lot of farmers. You've probably seen this a lot. Farmers, they go out and they lime like right before they seed.
Yeah.
So what can happen if you do that? What do you think could happen if you lime and then go out and seed like the next day or the next week? Well, okay, a couple of things can happen. One thing, if you got big granules of lime, so lime comes in a lot of different sizes, and that's one thing you got to keep in mind. You got to think about being strategic about that. So if you put some large granules out there, there's no way they're going to get absorbed into the ground. No time to get into the ground. No time. So your plants are not going to benefit from that. But if you go out and you put some really small ones out, and then it rains, or you irrigate, then it's going to be part of that runoff, and you're going to lose that. So you got to really look at it and plan your your lime administration in there, And so I know you were talking before about, I don't want to put anything in there like that. But lime is something that you really need to set your field with. And, you may only need to do it like once every 3 years. You don't have to do it all the time, but it's something you want to constantly look at. And maybe you find spots in your field that are different than other areas, and you want to treat that. Spot treat areas.
You're going to grow in a certain plot. Can you just put it on that plot?
Yeah. Or if you know that you're going to grow, if you're doing a rotation, or you know that you're going to grow something in a particular plot that's different from what you're going to do right over here, you may want to test both areas. It's a little investment, but it's not that much compared to what you can lose if you don't get it right.
Right. And lime itself is a contributor to getting the ground conditions right for availability of other nutrients that the plant needs. And lime itself is not that much of as essential as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But at the same time, it's essential in the processing of getting the pH and the conditions right for the availability of other nutrients. And with that, like we were saying, the time factor comes in. That is, the microbes have to have time to generate it into a form that the plants can take it up. So that's the whole scheme and rhyme and reason why you lime 3 to 4 months out of the planting for your cash crop season. So, is the conditioning of your soil in order to get it at the right pH in order to make the availability of other nutrients that the plant needs. So, yes.
I just wanted to know a little bit about the difference between pelletized lime and non-pelletized lime. Like, what are the reasons why you would use a pelletized lime?
Yeah, and really, like they were saying, breakdown and the solubility of getting it into the form that is working with your soil particles, your microbial activity, in order to get it into that soluble form and it takes longer if you got pelletized versus powder or granular. So looking at the time frame and your planting program, your cropping program. Lee, you want to?
I was going to say, the only thing I wanted to touch on briefly was, I know that $60 price tag scared folks a little bit. I was just wanting to make sure y'all knew these are not one and done kits. You'll probably just use a few specks of this every test, a few drops of the reagent liquid. If you are going to do a large scale farming product, you know you want to get one area sampled, you're more than likely going to be better off price wise getting the official Mississippi State or whichever company you use test. But if you want to test various smaller areas throughout the year, you'll probably get more uses out of this. It just depends on your particular financial situation and what you're trying to gather from your pH test to determine which one you would use.
Okay, yeah, good deal.
Good points, yeah.
Okay. And insectosoils, another order. Intersoils are more or less down in your creek bottoms and your streams. Young soils that develop. And we said, most soils develop from what? We said bedrock, and then it develop plant material. Intersoils develop from just continuous flood events and deposition of flooding, washing sediment loads from above, and then these along your streams. And you see all that sand build up and stuff. And so they're what we call young soils. They develop from erosion and overwash and deposition over time, which is called intersoils, young soils. And precipitation and climate factors, so precipitation, light, temperature, carbon dioxide concentration, relative humidity, wind, all these are factors of climate, soil forming factors. And we see soil organic. One, we talked about this texture, structure, and it affects your cation exchange, how nutrients are aligned to your soil particles and stuff.
Does anyone know what that is?
What?
Cation exchange.
The cation exchange capacity?
Cation exchange capacity.
Cation exchange capacity. Well, we were talking about your pH, we were saying that low pH, and then you want to get it 5.5 to 6.5. Okay, you have hydrogen ions. That's your pH, is your hydrogen ion concentration. It's negative reciprocal, hydrogen and ion. Okay, your hydrogen ion is a plus charge, okay? Okay, so then you have all those pluses, and then if it's all the pluses on those exchange sites, on these soil particles here, we can see through the microscope, but if all these pluses on these exchange heads, then the negative charges like your phosphorus, your manganese, and all those different stuff, it can't get to it because you got these positive charges. So that's why you want to reduce those hydrogen ions on these sites, because your nutrients can't get to it in order for the plants to be able to take it up. So that's the reason why pH was so important, because these cation exchanges, what, magnesium, calcium, nitrogen, potassium, all those essential nutrients, they can't get to your plant roots because it's intercepted, because you have all those hydrogen ions that's on those exchange sites. So that's the reason you try to manage that CEC, cation exchange capacity. Okay, some got to give. So we put lime in the ground, then that's going to take one of those positive charge atoms off that exchange site, that essential nutrient like nitrogen get on that exchange site, the plants can take it up. Yeah, so you got to understand that dynamics where you're trying to exchange positive for a negative, Okay, so if you remove it, if you remove that hydrogen ion off of it, you got a negative charge. So now your nitrogen plus ion can get on that site, and then that will make it available for plants to take it up. So what you're doing is swapping. You're swapping the minus for a positive, as far as those charges go. Okay, so that's why it's so critical. And all this is stuff we can't see that's taking place, that we're trying to get that maximum. And that's why we're trying to, I know just like my dad used to do years ago, just apply triple 13, don't fill out regardless, triple 13. And then, without, really understanding what the soil condition and chemistry behind it and stuff. So you might be, throwing your money away because it really wasn't doing any good. No good, right? Yeah.
I know it sounds silly, but it's almost like you have to bring these things to life. You have to find a way to connect with them, to think about, these chemicals are, these interactions that are happening, they're like characters. They're gonna, how can you have this, how can you distract this, right? You can get this one, you can go on a date with this one over here. If you think about it like that, you start to see that these things are alive, and that's what you're doing. You're running interference over here. You're playing matchmaker over here.
Right.
That's what your soil tests let you know. Who's available? Who's interested in who? What I got to send in there to seal the deal? That's literally what you're thinking about. And so the more you know about these characters, the better you're going to be able to conduct those relationships and help that work. All right. So if you really start to visualize it, you'll practice it better.
Yeah. It'll start making sense to you. Everything's a rhyme to the reason, okay? Soil organic matter benefits consist of plant and animal microbial residue with various stages of decay. And I always say that the microbiology that is what is responsible for breaking down of soil organic matter. And soil organic matter is their food source. They're trying to get that organic carbon from the organic matter, okay? So that's where the carbon is stored at. You have about 58% carbon for every pound of organic matter. You have about 58% carbon that's available in it on average, and that's what those microbes are trying to extract in order for them to feed on.
Delaney, do you want to maybe we can take a break for a second, and we can switch over to the slides.
Okay.
I think we've been talking about some of that, and it'd be really good to look at some soil under the microscope for a second.
Yeah.
And then you can come back this minute. You guys like that?
All right, so what we have here, we have a few different things we're going to look at just to emphasize again how small the world we're trying to build is. We're talking about things that are much smaller than we could ever imagine seeing. So this first thing here, I'm starting off probably with about the biggest slide that we have today. Anybody want to take half a guess at what we're looking at here? Not quite. You're on the right track though with an insect. Like I say, you're on the right track with insect. It's a part of an insect that we see every day, especially on phones.
Dragonfly.
Not a dragonfly eye. You close. Not a tick. It's some eye. It's an eye of some bug. You see it every day. It love being around cattle.
Love being around what?
Cattle. Little smaller than a horsefly. Little bigger than a gnat now. Look, you right there with horsefly. Just separate that word right there. Bingo. What you're looking at right here is one of the compounds from a fly's eye. So, and we're talking about the microorganisms that we're trying to foster in our soil are about 10 to 15 times smaller. This one is just, let's see, just a regular fly.
Okay, all right.
Now we're going to get into our plant stuff, which will actually help us visualize.
Okay.
Next thing we have here, let me see if I can find it. Bam. Now we're actually dealing with a plant. It is something you've definitely seen pieces of this all through Mississippi. The trees that make this are currently in a very bad state. They're dying statewide.
Pine trees.
Bingo. What you're looking at here is a pine stem that they have cut in half and zoomed in dramatically to the point to where, if I zoom in more here,
If anybody wants to get up and stand closer.
oh yeah, absolutely. You will not be in my way at all.
Show and tell, so.
So when you say a pine stem, you talk about a needle or
Go ahead, Delaney.
Yeah, pine needle.
pine needle?
Yeah,
Needle.
cross section.
Cross section of it, and that just lets you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're talking about a world that we can't conceptualize in our minds of how small.
That needle, this is just like looking right down the barrel of
And we're still not anywhere near the size of the microorganisms that we're trying to foster a home for.
Yeah.
Now we got some that's getting closer to their size. This will help actually conceptualize how small they are numerically. We got, bam. All right, so you can see we've gotten to the point now to where we can actually see different formations and different barriers within the layers of what we're looking at. I gave you the hint right there with layers.
It's still already the pine tree.
No, this is a different thing entirely. This is something that should be in everybody's kitchen at home. If y'all cooks, you got this at home. It goes in just about every soul food recipe out there.
Is it a plant or what?
It's a plant, it's a vegetable.
Onion?
Bingo. What we're looking at here is the skin of an onion. Yeah, it's stained so we can see the colors pop out. Now, the organisms we're talking about dealing with are about 10 times smaller than a single cell within the skin of, or within any plant or animal. So we're talking about things where if I were to get a slide that could show them, I'd probably have 3 different lenses on here extended down, and we still might have to squint just a little bit. But this is probably about the closest introduction I can get with the slides that we have here to the world that we're trying to look at. We're looking at creatures that if they were on this slide right now, you wouldn't be able to see them. But what they're doing within that soil is transferring these nutrients between the plants. They're using the pH to facilitate what they need to give the plants the help that they need so that they can grow and continue to foster life. Down there in the world, just like up here in ours, it's a system of harmony where if everything is going right, you get those great, big, green, beautiful crops that we love and that our animals need. When people stop doing their job and things get out of whack, you start to get different diseases that come through in your plants. You get a lack of nutrient transfers. And to touch on what Mr. Delaney spoke about earlier when we were talking about the ideal composition of soil, when you press out that air and water, you end up with our compacted soils. Those are the soils that if you've ever been in with a spade, you can jump on it 10 times, you're probably not going anywhere through that soil. What's happened is the pores where the water and air was have been pushed out, usually by mechanical means, driving our tractors and such over it, or livestock. If you've ever been to any cow field, they're gonna walk one trail forever. Over time, that continued pressure down on that soil presses out those pores. So not only do you have a soil that's losing some of its structure, you're losing the space for your water and air to flow through and deliver your nutrients to those root zones. So now you have a problem of that top layer is going to dry out dramatically more now because there's no water underneath to continue to sustain it. That's when you get to that area. We've all seen one, usually close to a hill. You'll see that one flat spot. There's nothing growing there anymore. It's just dust and dirt. And when the wind and water come up there, now you're going to get into one of our biggest issues in agriculture, and you get erosion. That compounded soil doesn't have anything holding it together, compacted, I should say, holding it together, anything nearly as well underneath there, because the plants can't get an anchor. There's no space for anything there. Then you end up, if you dig up plants that are growing in compacted soils that aren't meant for those soils, you get with all your different root shapes, your J roots, your U roots, because that plant has hit a zone it can no longer get to, so it has to turn up. In the same way with us, where if you're used to taking a certain path, let's just make it conceptualized. If you're used to going to work one way, and now, instead of cutting straight off the interstate and going to work, you got to go through 3 other counties going around. You've added stress to your daily activities. The same is true for our plants. When they have to change the activities they're used to and they're accustomed to doing, it stresses that plant. And when that plant is stressed, it stops producing the way we need it to. It starts to get those coloration losses. It starts to die out slowly because that added stress is killing that plant quite literally due to either our actions or our lack of actions in keeping our soil in its proper state. Now, this was just to get y'all into the smaller world, to give you an idea of what we're trying to build up here and what we're trying to protect. What we're going to transfer into here is actually looking at our soil physical properties and getting a real feel for the things we're talking about and how they apply in real life scenarios.
I wanted to add,
What you got?
No, I was saying thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
I wanted to ask you about what we were talking about compaction.
Yes.
So what are some of the above ground consequences of compaction?
You got compaction pretty much hurts just about everything that you were trying to put in above ground. In animal sense, let's say you have a compacted soil, clearly your grasses aren't going to grow as well. Your cows are going to be more stressed. They're not going to have as much to eat. As you know, most animals, especially small ruminants, they have a certain length where they usually stop. If they have to continue to go even further than that, you're adding stress to the animal, giving them subpar nutrients. And from a soil's perspective, you're going to lose some of your water. Your air, like I said, your air is not going to be in there to facilitate the transfer of any additions that you're putting in there. And you're going to get hard pans in your soil that aren't conducive for continuous agriculture in a sustainable setting.
So water is not able to infiltrate,
No,
so it's going to run off.
It's going to run off. You're going to end up, instead of how that soil there, you see we can break it up as different blocks, but it has solid structure, and you could tell when you feel it, there's some moisture and air. You're going to end up with almost plate-like structures instead of our nice granular or subangular blocky structure. And those plates are going to stop water from infiltrating, stop air from infiltrating, and anything you've mixed into that water, say we did add some type of fertilizer amendment, instead of being able to penetrate in that soil and get down to where it can take the processes of dissolving, it's just going to continue to run off, which results for any of our hobby farmers, commercial farmers, directly translates to dollars lost that you're getting no value from.
Not to mention the nutrients that are going off into your
Absolutely.
neighbor's stream or your stream, the water supply, everything else, because it can't get into the ground. It's just going to wash on off.
We're going to touch on that a lot once we get out to that rainfall simulator, the impact.
I know there's a question that's burning out here. Can we get a preview of this? Is there anything you can do if you have compacted soils?
There are several different solutions to compacted soils, and they vary based on the type of operation you're trying to run. Like there are farmers who go for a non-conventional agriculture. They don't want to deal with a lot of the tillage and machinery. There are plants you can grow that naturally break up compaction. There are compaction busting plants, one of which a lot of our big root plants such as turnips, that's what we grew when I was doing my grad school research. We grew turnips because what they'll do is they'll go down, get in there, and they'll spread up and break up that soil in a more natural state for those that don't want to resort to the machine options. So there are a few of them. I'm trying to remember the term they give them. I always just call them compaction busting plants, and you can Google that and get a nice list, and you can get a list of those that are catered to Mississippi or your specific soil.
So those are like good crops to grow before you want to grow your other crops, because they get down there, they break up, and they create paths, their roots. So you grow your other things down there, and those roots can follow the paths that have already been created by the bigger plants, the ones with the big roots. Yeah.
What do you call it? Tuber crops.
Tuber
That's
crops.
what it's tubers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tube, like a tube.
Too big, like,
As you're saying, as far as what we're doing and what we try to push here is agriculture is not so much a year-to-year system. We want to go for long-term agricultural things. So you're going to be looking at things on a consistent basis and making changes as needed. You don't just want to think, all right, I'm growing corn here, cotton here. We want to plan for those in-between seasons and think about what our soil is needing. I think someone asked a while back, when do you take your soil test? When we were doing them for my master's, we took one after each growing season because we wanted to make sure our soil had time to become accustomed to the crop that we wanted to grow. As he pointed out, if you put lime on and try to plant the next day, nothing has had time to break down and incorporate into that soil.
I think we had a question during the break over here about cover cropping, and if there's a value in that dealing with either erosion or compaction.
Absolutely. So And we'll touch more on how much it helps once we go out to the rainfall simulator, but the cover crop provides the most important thing for soil, and that's a protective barrier. Then you have cover crops, for example, let's say some of our legumes that actually help import nutrients back into your soil. The reason you want to have your soil covered is because you never want to leave your soil out to those elements to face them alone. When you do that, that's when you get your soil loss, you get your loss of your topsoil. And as we've stated time and time again today, it takes more than any of our lifetimes to replenish that topsoil. I'll tell y'all the numbers that we came up with, scientists argue about it all the time, but we got a range. Once we get out there, I'll show you all how long it truly takes just to make 1 inch and how fast we can lose 1 inch of that valuable topsoil. So the benefits of cover crops are protecting your topsoil. Depending on which cover crops you put, it'll add nutrients back into your soil. And depending on the type of operation you have, there are cover crops that are beneficial to our small ruminants and our cattle's microbiology and their gut biomes. So if you have cattle that are having a specific issue, you might be able to plant something in that space that will help them facilitate and get rid of that issue in a more natural setting.
So it sounds like one thing about the cover crops, it's kind of in the name in there too, cover.
Cover.
It's like
cover is the name of the game.
It's good to have it's important to have a canopy out there. So if I'm like, if I like go and jump off the top of this building and just on the ground, it's going to be a little different from if I jump, off this chair, right?
Absolutely.
It's going to be a different kind of impact. Well, it's the same thing with rain and other elements. When it's coming down and it hits that ground untreated by anything, it's going to have a big impact. But if it's hitting a canopy, that's going to stop that, and it's going to have less of an impact, and you're going to have less erosion that happens, right? Less impact, less disturbance of that topsoil. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why you want to have that cover crop out there to create a good canopy. Yeah. One of the reasons. There are other reasons too, as we were talking about.
Yeah. And the other reason is you want to have live roots in your ground year round, and it achieves that objective, because we say soil is a living dynamic natural system, right? So we don't look for it to die when it gets cool from October to February and then come back alive again in March. So in order for it to stay living, it has to, the microbes have to have something to attract them, something to give them reason to exchange energy and stay active. So you got live roots with your cover crops during the cool season, where you don't have your cash crops, your soybean, your corn, or your squash, tomato, your greens and peas. So cover crops achieves that objective. It has live roots in the ground year round, which are still, the microbes are generating nutrients. And then when you get ready to the growing season, when you grow your cash crops, then you have a source of nitrogen in the ground, because a lot of cover crops are nitrogen generating. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
I wanted to do like a real live example of what happens in my farm. Because like in the fall, we plant greens.
Right.
But the way I harvest them is that I cut them. I don't pull out the whole thing.
Right.
I leave the root.
Right.
If I cut them like that and then leave the root over the winter, could that be like a form of cover cropping?
Yes, form of cover cropping, because we said live roots in the ground. So yeah.
And then just what? And when I'm ready to plant again, I mean, at some point do I need to till those in?
You can till them in, or you could leave them there, because in soil health we don't disturb. We minimum till, no till. We generally just plant between them. So, and generally, sometimes those greens, they'll produce a second season, a second or third season, if you let them. But like I say, let's leave that sticker in the ground, and that will serve as a soil health type of improvement, because it's live roots in the ground, and then plus it has a dimension, a diameter, where it's helping to break the clods up. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it can serve a similar purpose as a cover, but it's technically called residue management. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it's what resides out there. It's a different kind of practice.
Yeah.
And say that because NRCS has practices, cost-sharing practices that they will pay you to do, and residue management is one. Tillage, reduced tillage is another. Cover cropping is another. Crop rotation is another. So these are all different practices that have different types of names. They have similar kind of results in some ways, you know, but USDA will pay you to do these practices. You are participating in the NRCS. Yeah. Which ones are you participating in?
But they help me with my and then use the rotation of the crops and stuff.
Excellent, excellent. Did that help?
It did, it really did.
That's probably about our biggest one is fencing and rotational grazing as well as crop rotation and for those bare areas, critical area plantings.
Right.
You know, that's something that we, this is something that was, confession, totally new to me. You know, I had not thought about this at all, you know, until, you know, not that long ago, but it's the areas around your farm that you're not planting your cash crops. Those are equally as important.
Right.
Equally as important. So a critical area planting is just kind of what it sounds like. You may have something else, you may have a lot of production going on over here, but it's creating runoff. It's got to go somewhere. So you need something a planting to take that up. You need some grasses, you need something. Maybe have some beneficial insects in there as well. Maybe have a pollinator in there. Maybe do some other things with it. But you want that to stop that runoff from happening. You need to think about your farm as a larger ecosystem.
Yep. Yep. Well, just look at that slide here. Just look at the pattern of that. And now that's magnified to the level that you see the network and you see just, now these are like cells and each one has a function and it's helping to generate nutrients. It's helping to provide photosynthesis through sunlight. Not only just nutrients from the ground, but it processes nutrients from the sunlight also that would help enable the plant for sustainability and health. So you're looking at a whole system right here that is really contributing to the plants. But this system right here, it still needs the soil in order for it to provide it those nutrient balance in order for it to do what it does. So you're looking at that, what I was trying to say is, you're looking at this whole system that is active at the same time, is mutually contributing to the growth and development of that plant. Everything, if you don't, at 60 days or however long it takes to harvest whatever plant you crop you planted, then it's all for naught. Everything we talked about, everything is geared trying to get that plant to maturity, to harvest that we can eat it. Yeah. Otherwise, what are we doing this for? You know. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question about a particular product, right?
Yeah.
So you have the weed barrier, or they call it plastic mulch, but it's that woven polyester.
Oh, yeah.
It lets water through.
Right.
Now, I've used it in the past, and when I've taken it up, I did not like what I saw. Like, it was just like surface of the moon, bare, lots of bugs.
Right.
As a practice, what can you say about that? If I'm planting through that, if I'm laying that down and making a hole and planting through that, does that negatively impact the growth of plant? Is it positive, negative? Is it something I should do temporarily, something that's not good for me every year? Like, I don't feel good about it in my gut. Like, it doesn't feel good to me.
Right.
But, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
Expensive.
Is it negative? Can I switch to something else that's less expensive and more natural, more beneficial for the plant?
Like I say, you can do residue management and use that as a mulching residue that would help to achieve the objective. But now the landscape, what are you talking about, landscape fabric, and that has a purpose because it shades the weeds and it really overheats the soil to a degree where the microbial activity is inhibited. But now it does allow heat to stay generated, retains moisture, and you have to do artificial type irrigation because you have no water source there. So you have to include that in with your way of setting it up and developing it.
Did
So
you
there
use
are some
micro
pros and cons.
irrigation with it?
Well, at that
Dex,
point-
you want to respond to that? About landscape mulching versus natural mulching.
Well, as far as, NRCS wants you to now do landscape fabric that lasts longer. Typical plastic mulch lasts maybe 1 to 2 years, and that's kind of pushing it. Landscape fabric that lasts up to, I think, 5. They want you to do that. It's great for weed suppression. It's great for early germination because it heats the soil a little bit more. You do need to run, for irrigation purposes, you have to run drip tape underneath it usually to help keep the soil volume wetted. There's definite pros to it, but it doesn't support minimal it kind of supports minimal or no-till practices, which NRCS is wanting you to do more of. But it's still not completely natural. It just helps with weed suppression and early germination. So pros and cons to it.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that Bear's asking in here too, and we're about to go outside, but so we can do a little something for lunch. One of the questions that Bear's asking too, and just to keep in mind, and I know it sounds a little counterintuitive because we're talking about growing food, right? But agricultural production is a man-made, human-made event. That is not something that just happens naturally. In order to make it work, we can either work with nature or work against nature. And in the short term, we as a country, in large parts of the world have worked against nature to get things out of it quickly. And that's how you end up with things like the Dust Bowl, you end up with problems like that. Or we can work with nature and use the natural cycles of it, learn what we can, but it is still a system where we are coming in and doing something that is not just naturally going to happen. So we have to make choices and think about, what is this for? Is this for me? Am I trying to feed a school? Am I trying to feed other people? So do I need to be able to generate more? And so there are lots of questions that come along with that. Yeah.
I think for your particular situation and the question you're asking, is it beneficial? The key thing is to figure out what is your objective with using the plastic mulch. If your objective is weed suppression, it's very good at that. But if you were to try it again, I would definitely recommend running the drip tape so you can help with some of that, putting moisture back onto that soil, because without the drip tape, like I say, what you described, surface of the moon, you probably peeled it back and it's just dry mounds.
It was, but I was using overhead irrigation, like, the thing.
Right, just the
And
overhead.
it kind of just does the 3, foot round.
Yeah, with those, you would probably want to invest in some drip tape lines, which they can range in price. I'm not sure how much they go for at the moment.
Well, there's a lot of different kits you can get. We have one that's like the GK1000 for irrigation mark. It's got 1,000 feet of drip tape, header hose, and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's affordable, easily affordable, and can do 1,000 feet of tape, and it just hooks up to your garden hose.
And they're not hard to set up.
And we have we did a workshop on micro irrigation I guess it was about a month ago. No, it was November. At the end of November.
I know, it seems like.
But we have it's literally a 3-hour video that we have on YouTube now.
Okay.
So you can go to our website and you can see it. But we went through everything, from all the parts of it and how to hook it up, how to maintain it. So it's very in depth.
Yeah. But like I said, one thing about you gotta look at what you are friendly to your objectives as far as the artificial versus the natural. Your biological, your soil biology, it is going to be impacted with that landscape and plastic.
It's
So.
just that I don't have access to residue to do the natural mulch.
Right. Yeah. Like I say, depending on what your program is, But and maybe another time or location that you wanted to do both. The landscape, the plastic versus the natural. So, but those are the pros and cons of doing it those different ways and stuff.
So we have about 20 minutes before lunch, before we have to, do we have time to do something outside?
You want to show some here? Well,
We'll probably have time to do something inside, like the soil coloring and
Okay,
talk about what
let's-
the different colors.
yeah.
Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what you all have in front of you is what we call our Munsell color book. Now, as Mr. Delaney talked about earlier, all of our soils have different classifications based on different properties within those soils, some chemical, some physical. The three that we usually look at is well, two for me, for what I do for my day-to-day as a soil scientist, is texture and color. And what we're going to focus on right now is our color. Now, just for some peace of mind or let you know, each one of these books costs about $300. Now, the reason they cost $300 is those books are newer. I want to say, late 2010s maybe, whereas this book is older than me by far, and I'm 28. The reason they're $300 because these books are meant to last. They're meant to survive the elements, and they keep their color more or less so that you can use these to help identify those soils for long periods of time. Now, there are a lot of things we can learn about a soil from its color alone. Let's just say this soil right here. Most of you gonna see brown. But if you were to go through in this book, take a clod of this soil and place it behind these pages to try and match it up, you'll end up getting pretty close to some color. The key, even as soil scientists, folks, we might look at it for hours. We can just figure it out. Look, call it. Trust yourself and call it. And the reason we need the color is there are multiple soils that have very similar characteristics, but the color ranges of those soils are different. So you might have 2 or 3 soils that are just about the same, but it will make a difference in what you're trying to use them for on your land. You would use your color alongside your texture to definitively get an answer because each soil has a range of colors. So you'll know from the color alone, all right, I'm dealing with this particular type of soil, whatever its scientific name may be. And then they can also help figure out the present and past conditions of the land. If you'll flip to the earlier pages of the book, some of the first ones, I don't know if the new ones have, but top it has clay. These are the colors we use to try and identify what we call our hydric soils. Those are soils that are overly saturated. They hold water for extended periods of time. They're usually grays to white in color. The color alone, when you dig those soils out the ground, will let you know what type of soil you're dealing with. And we need this because here we have different rules from farmland protection, and we have to take care of our soils that are hydric. They may be wetland area soils. So this is important in both in an agriculture and land use sense and a legality sense. We don't want to go out and call something a wetland when it's not truly a wetland because it could put that landowner in hot water due to our swamp busting laws. So when we go out to identify wetlands, we must take this book with us. When we go out to identify soils for general use, whether it be a pond, you want to build something out there, some type of concrete pad, a structure to help with your grade stabilization, we take soil samples and we look through these colors as well as get a feel for those textures to make sure we're giving that landowner the best advice for how to continue to use that land. I don't believe in bad soil. I don't think bad soil exists. Soil is, and good soil and bad soil are based solely on what that soil is supposed to be used for. In Mississippi, you probably wouldn't want a field full of nothing but sand. Go out to the deserts, Arizona, California, different countries. They love the sand. It helps the crops that are meant to grow in those sandy areas. Here, you probably wouldn't like to go outside and your whole front yard is flooded. Asia, where they're big rice countries, they love those wet areas. Soil isn't good or bad on just a basic yes or no. It's a spectrum of values based on what that soil is supposed to be used for, and we have to make sure that we're using it accordingly. That's why we go into our color to try and identify the soil. Now I'll take a piece here, and using the book, one of the simplest things you'll ever do. And I'll just come drop a clod just about. You will just take this here, bam. I say it ain't gonna bite you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I thought them chairs was gonna budge. They made a fool of me. Yep, and you just put it behind there and try to match the color up as best as you can. If you want to go more yellow, you flip towards the right. If you want to go more red, you flip towards the left.
Yeah, and the thing on there is, what you gotta look at, like Lee was saying, generally in Mississippi, I can give him a little cheat.
Yeah, go ahead. Give him a little cheat.
Yeah, generally, it's 10 and a half hour page. That's generally where most of our soil, that's where young.
5 hour.
Okay.
10.5.
And then you look at across, is the, up and down is the value, and across is the chroma. From
They're about the same.
north to south is the value, and east to west is the chroma. Okay, and whatever chip you associate with that color, say for instance you had on, is this chip right here, then that's a 10YR, then you
You can go one page over.
10, you look up here first, 10YR at the top of the page, the top right. What's that number? The top right, that lettering up there, the top right of your page. Of your page. This is where you record it.
I just walked over with them.
This is where you record it.
And this is one of those things where, let's say y'all were in the field working together, we would just have one person. All right, you the color person. Because you see it a different way. He might see it a different way. My eyes might see it different. So we usually just pick one person. You're on color,
And the
dude.
value from north to south.
Okay,
Okay, and then the chroma, so you said this right here.
I said this right here, let's see.
So you're gonna say what? The color, if you want to record it, you say 10YR.
NYR.
Good chunk right there.
Well, there's 3, 4, 10YR 3, 3.
I use it different.
10YR
I put it on
3, that's
front.
where you
Some people
record
put
it.
it behind.
10YR.
Match it through the whole. No, trust me, it's no hurting the book. It's meant
You're
to
gonna
be.
tell somebody, then they'll know exactly what that
It's just
color
how it
refers
hits your
to.
eyes. And the way you would read it once you
It's
find the
the-
color you like is you would go
the hue,
10YR at the top.
it's the strength of the-
Then you'd
of
read
the-
your value on this side.
How brown it
And
is.
your chroma. So if
And the
you're
value,
that one,
it's the
it'd be
purity.
10 point or 10
And
YR.
and the chroma is the
You got your
relative
value 8,
how
7, 6, 5.
comparison is from one
And then 8.
shade to the next.
10 YR,
So hue,
5, 8.
value, and chroma. 10YR
It
3,
could be.
3.
That's why, like I was
That's where you
telling them,
record
usually
it.
if we're out in the field, let's say we got 3 people, one person just on color duty.
About that
That's their
time?
whole job, because the way your eyes
Okay.
might see it and the way mine might see it might be different. But it's best when
y'all
you
got
pick
it?
one, call it, because it's gonna be within the range. It's not gonna be too far off. Yep, that's it. And then once we get an idea of, like I said, we texture it to feel how it
the hue
feels,
is-
we look at the
is
color, and then we can go into our database, and from
value
that alone, we can get a range of soils that it might be based on where
okay.
we are.
That's how you record it. And somebody, if they in another
Order it
country,
off
you tell
Amazon.
them 10YR 4, they'll know what you're talking about, another sauce.
And I would definitely get it used. Because new, like I say, new, they're
Because
300.
myself color. Yeah. And then from
I
that,
would get it used.
you can interpret how the condition of it.
Absolutely.
And like in gray, reduce iron soils.
But like you were
probably
saying,
wet,
in
a wet
Mississippi,
state.
we're just about
And you look
gonna be
at
on
down
this
here,
page
this
for where
from
we
brown,
are.
you get.
So
you
everything
get
on this page
more
will be
iron.
some Mississippi
More
soil,
iron.
and then
And as you go
we
to
could
your-
cut out a lot of the other ones, like we got some Florida soils
Yes,
that's
you-
their color, but that's not the region we're in. And it just helps us identify and properly use our soils.
Yeah.
I think we got
Then
about 10
you
minutes.
have these different hues, and further you go to your left, you get with 7.5 hours. Look at this. Turn a little browner, turn a little, and then you get on to your 5YR.
So this book doesn't tell you anything about the composition, just the color only?
The color, and you can interpret from the color
Okay.
what the condition is. Yeah, that's what we do.
Once you get, like we were saying, the color, the texture, and the geographical region that you're in, it helps you narrow down the potential soils it could be. And
Right.
you also have the free app, what is it, is it Soil Web or Web Soil?
So, well,
Yeah, it'll actually get your location. Yep, look, I never could remember because the website is Web Soil. Yep, Soil Web. It's a free app. You don't need to make any account. It uses your phone's GPS to get your location. You can just hit Get Soil Data, which I'll walk around and show. And it'll show you based on our soil database, the one that we use for all of our everything, the soil that was mapped here when they first did our surveys way back when.
I got that app right
and it'll just show you essentially what's there. You could open up the Google Earth map and it'll show you the soils that were mapped in this region and just give you a baseline idea of what's there.
Yeah, and we talked about soil organic matter all morning. Okay, which one of these material I have in my hand, which one do you think is high in organic matter? It's the highest in organic. One to the left. Okay, that's it. That's it. And this is pretty much near the surface, but I could have taken this plant off here, this material off here, the vegetation, and just gave you a darker,
where we are,
just a clouder material. But anytime you see a darker material, you can associate that with organic
this is just how
matter
they map
content.
the soil.
That's what's causing that darker
the
color.
original surveys. Just
Those
to
are
get an idea of
residue,
what you got working
decomposition.
before you get
But
a
when you get
test
down
to try
into
to
the
do
lower
anything.
part in your subsoil,
Because you might not
then
always
this has
need a
little or
full
no
test. You might
organic
just want to know
matter.
what the texture
It
is.
is low in
without trying to
natural
dig a million
fertility.
holes, and this
Little
will give you
or
a
no
general
microbial
idea.
activity takes place down in this zone. This is really just mineral. It's not organic. It's just mineral.
A few hundred
Soil
years of
organic.
weathering.
That stuff. But yeah, and that's the way we do in the coloration part.
Possible that that's parent material?
Do we,
Parent
do we keep
material?
It was at one time, but now it's
wish-
subsoil now. It's-
I wish I could give it away.
Yeah. It will sustain root growth and water transmission for plants and uptake and stuff. But this is your subsoil, this is your topsoil. This is kind of what you want to see in that sequence in most places.
Remember lunch, she said, she wants to be.
Look, I've been keeping time. I'm on it. I'm not gonna let y'all miss lunch.
And one other thing before we leave, now this is your organic, that old layer that Dave was talking about. The old layer, you can determine some of the plant remains. You can see some of it was leaves, some of it was roots, some of it was just plant. But it's a decomposition stage. It's old material, organic material. So you still see some of the evidence of it was plants. Now this is not soil. But this aids in soil structure, reduces soil compaction, allows air pocket, pore space in order for the microbes to penetrate down in and make them mobile. But this is what you want to see in a good soil. And that's why you see a lot of this bag that Lowe's and Walmart and Home Depot, this peat.
So is it, I'm not sure, so I'm wondering, is it because microbes and earthworms and other things will eat this and they go in the ground and they secrete? Part of it, they use part of it and then they secrete other parts, and those secretions actually help create, they help aerate the space. And so that you have more space available for water and air to move through. So that's why this is happening.
And I'm gonna tell you,
organic,
just touching on
organic.
what you said earlier when we were
Organic,
talking about
yeah,
soil
organic.
formation from the bottom up. You were like, I thought it was the other way. It forms from the
identify the
bottom up, but we
remains.
enhance it from the top down.
Microbes, they like to move around.
I mean, people use tillers to kind of aerate and transport, but they actually plug the packages up.
The big issue is, because I get asked all the time as a soils person, am I against tillage? It's not the tillage so much that I'm fully against, it's leaving that soil bare for
You can
extended
still determine
periods of
some of the
time. I'm sure
remains,
you've seen a
whether
guy
it
till
was
the field and he
leaves or
won't plant for
weeds
2
or
weeks. So for
So that's
2
a-
weeks, that soil was
that's
just
still
out
the
exposed,
organic layer
baking
is
in the
still
sun, losing everything.
Decomposing this.
The tillage itself, when done in a manageable
Not topsoil,
and
it's organic.
sustainable
It's still just
system,
plant remains.
I
plant
don't
remains.
truly love it, but it's not the most evil. It's more evil just to leave that soil exposed, but as you're saying, we would prefer low to no tillage.
Oh, okay.
You can also, I think that I've heard people say, it kills the earthworms, it kills like the worms, so that they're not able to aerate.
Yeah, because you're basically coming through their home with a bulldozer with blades on it. So,
When used by, there's deep tillage, there's reduced tillage, and then there's no tillage. Every now and then, most farms are gonna, even the best farms are gonna have to use some kind of a deep tillage at some point, but then outside of that, you may not have to do it but once every 3 years or something,
And you have to do it in the beginning when you're establishing.
When you're establish it, you break up that hard pan. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is not soil right now, this is organic matter. You can still identify the origin of the plant remains and stuff. So, but anyway, this aids in soil conditioning.
All right.
All right. I'm thinking that we should go to lunch.
Yes.
And come back, because we have a lot to do when we come back. Does that sound good to everybody?
Now, what you have in front of you right here is our rainfall simulator. And what we're going to look at is the impacts of rainfall or water-based erosion on 3 different samples. Now, the key to this is all 3 of these soils are the exact same soil. They came from a pit we dug just a couple hundred or 150 foot that way. They came out of the same hole. So we're not looking at different soil types. We're looking at different management practices and the effects they have on the soil types. Here, it reinforces what Mr. Delaney spoke on earlier. This is our live rooted sample. This is a sample that has active roots growing down into it, plants anchored into this soil, and the soil structure being held together with great pore space for water and air to flow through. Here, exact same soil once again. This one just is the bare soil itself, the granules, without any sort of protection on top of them. And over here, we got this the big sister, this the little sister. It's the same thing. This one just got a little more hair on top. This one, we just put a dry cover on top to simulate another point we brought up, residue. So we're going to look at the erosion impacts of a bare sample, live rooted, and a sample with some crop residue on top. The buckets you see in the front closest to you all, they're going to catch our runoff water. All the water that collects in those jugs is the water that's run off. It's gone to someone else's property, gone in a ditch, cut through your property, and at the end of it usually ends up in some sort of local stream, lake, or water body. Now, when the soil leaves here, it's taking what you added to that soil and it's carrying it with it. So if you have used herbicides, pesticides, even just fertilizers, triple 13, for example, it's taking that with it and it's depositing that into the fish habitat. The reason that's so detrimental to the fish habitat is because those nutrients were not meant to exist in those waters in those levels. What happens is you get a process called eutrophication. During that process, too many nutrients have been added to the water and algae begins to bloom at an accelerated rate. What that algae does is take the nutrients and oxygen away from the fish and the beneficial aquatic vegetation that's supposed to be there. So by the fish simply existing and us not doing our part, we're ruining their habitat as well as losing our precious soil. Now, we talked about it all day. We've talked about topsoil. It takes forever and ever and ever. I told y'all I was going to give y'all a number once we got out here. The number that's the most common used is to make 1 inch of topsoil takes anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years. So again, as Delaney said, it's out of our lifetime. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to mess it up and 500 years to fix it. I don't know about y'all, that's not a good trade to me. So that's why it's important for us to take the steps we need to protect our soil. And it truly is as simple as a cover. This cover, once we get this demonstration rolling, and I hope it's good for me today. Delaney know this is an honest man's demonstration. It don't show you what you want to see, it shows you what's out here. We've had it sometimes it look perfect. We've had it other times we look foolish because the bare sample got more water infiltrated. But today I think we got a real good soil. It's a nice sandy loam soil out there. So we're probably going to see some really good results once we start to water. And the way it works is real simple. It's just an oscillating head and a bunch of water pressure is going to come out of it. I'm going to say it'll probably stop right about yonder. There we go. And again, I told you the water in the front, that's going to be our runoff. So all we're doing here is letting this water hit this soil. And once it gets saturated, you can already start to see it on the leftmost sample. That soil on that top layer is already beginning to just make a pool of muck. There's no structure holding it together. And once that muck hits the barrier of that tray, you'll see the storm slowly start to begin and it cascade over. And you can see already compared to the other two, this one's starting this little cascade. The other two, you see, they're fine. They're existing, they're very happy. Whereas this one, that water is just slowly stripping that top layer of soil back and forth, and we're already starting to get a significant amount of runoff water going away from where we want it. Now, from our conservation standpoint, we're losing our soil, we're losing water. From a farmer standpoint, a commercial standpoint, you're losing money. all of the amendments you've made to this soil are washing away. If you pay for your water, it's washing away. And I don't know about y'all, but in Mississippi, I want every dollar I got to count. So we can't afford to be losing our resources, especially when we don't have the capacity to rebuild those natural resources. We've started to get some runoff in the middle just from the amount of water that's hit it, but notice the color difference between the left and the centermost sample. The one on the left is about a Yoo-hoo chocolate milk color. The one in the middle, I wouldn't want to drink it, but if I had to choose between the two, I'm taking the one in the middle. And the one on the right, which is, remember, the exact same as the one on the far left, only thing is I just put some dry leaves from my parking lot in it. You're seeing the impacts of what happens when you leave that little bit in there versus if you harvest from the bottom up and take everything. You end up going from an extreme A to an extreme B. The less water we have filling up the front, the better. Because we are, in most places, going to have some sort of runoff. But if we can alleviate that runoff and alleviate the amount of soil that's taken from that runoff, then we're doing our job with conservative agriculture. Part of your planning needs to be how to amend your soil, how to check that soil during each growing season or after each growing season to ensure it has the proper nutrients, etc., for the crop you're planning on growing. We want to give that crop the best possible chance it has to succeed. And it helps us lower our input costs and maximize our output costs or our output gain. So remember, I told you all this is your runoff. So we see how much we lost. Let's see how much we gained, and we're going to start with the one over there, Delaney. Like so, you can pull it down or slide it. Wow. And let me see. Dex, you mind helping me real quick? I just need you to grab the one in the middle from the back. Right at the top there. And Delaney, if you don't mind, grab that one over there. So this is the furthest left of my direction now. This is how much water infiltrated down. This is the water that went to our plant rooting systems. Look at how much water ran off. Not much. And remember, these two, well, all three of them are the same, but these two were both granules of soil that we took out of the pit. I just covered this one. That's the only difference. And look at the night and day difference in infiltration between me and Mr. Delaney. You can't make it up. Whereas that one, that's the one that had the live rooted sample, and we didn't lose much from this. This is just a more dense cover system because I put it there. It's more of a man-made thing that I did. But the natural system that's there, look at how much water those roots facilitated going downwards. To reinforce a point made earlier, Delaney was talking about it, the rain itself is not the issue. It's the impact and the speed. When it hits that bare soil, if you were to look at it under a microscope and slow it down, it would hit, pop up like a small explosion and carry those loose particles with it. Whereas when it hits this, it has to travel down each and every one of those blades of grass until it finally hits the soil surface. And once it gets to that surface, it's forced to slow down and go through the pathways that have already been created rather than running off. Same here. It's not getting through this. If we think about football, this is the best offensive line you could ever have. Everything under this is completely safe because all we did was provide a layer of protection to that soil. Whereas over there, for those that are a little closer, you can see from the edges, these pans were all full when I started. You can see we've lost some topsoil already just from the little bit of time we had water running. And it takes 500 to 1,000 years to fix a few minutes of negligence. For me, it takes about 30 seconds to put a dried cover on top. For a farmer or producer, it's residue. It's planting a cover crop. For those that are interested in the mulching, it's keeping that soil covered. Coverage is the name of the game. It brings too many benefits for a relatively low cost to not cover. You got anything to add, Delaney?
You did a good job.
Thank you.
The only thing, like I say, reinforce what Lee just said, is you want to restrict the impact of downward movement. So what you saw here on that, feeling the downward movement, because you had opportunity for water to get to the surface, then work its way down through that network of channels that were already existing, those postbursts, those air pockets. So therefore you had infiltration getting down to the root zone, just where the plant needs it. But over here, you got more, like I say, more runoff, and you're losing your topsoil, you're losing that in that way, and plus at the same time, it's not getting down. If your runoff exceeds your infiltration, then you're having problems. You got a problem on your hands.
So in that case, so if you were to dig down, it would really be dry underneath. Would it be dry underneath because the water is not getting?
It'd be relatively dry.
We usually have a tarp we'll pull out and flip them, but if we were to flip all 3 of these trays, that one by far would be the driest. We've had it to a point to where it's powder keg dry at the bottom, despite how muddy it is at the top. Because as he said, that water is not infiltrating down. It's just beating on a specific spot until it forces its way down. It's not going through the natural pathways and pore space within the soil itself.
Right. And then also you see this center container here where the water is clear, it's not as turbid. Because you had live root network where water was making its way down through. It wasn't taking its way soil with it. So that's the good thing about having live roots, where we said the year round. That helps with the aeration, pore space, and nutrient generation also. So
that's also not just for the crops that you're growing. It's not just for crops, right?
No.
No, this is for the whole areas around your
garden,
farm,
pasture,
the whole
front yard.
ecosystem of your farm. You think about that. You think about it, if it's between your crops and your little creek over there, your stream over there, if that's what you got versus that's what you got, are you gonna be able to retain that water in your overall field?
Right.
And as he said, to bring it back to a homeowner perspective, imagine how bad that would cut on even just a hill with just about a foot of drop every 100 feet. Eventually that's gonna put a gully going straight through your property, and you're gonna end up with a problem that's far more expensive to solve. Like I was telling them at lunch, I grew up around all the old folks, and they used to tell me the best way to solve a problem is to stop it before it becomes a problem. Once you see the issue begin to present itself, we can make steps towards correcting it. Because water is gonna cut, it's gonna follow the same path, it's gonna seek out water. And water is probably the most destructive cutting force that we have.
Right.
High pressurized water can cut through just about anything.
One of the things I've noticed is that this was the one with the grass is sort of like a filtration system.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So it started to filter out any of the bad nutrients to actually clear, so that good, clean, clear water could get to the roots.
Yes,
in
sir.
the system. That's one
Absolutely.
of the things I actually noticed.
Would it be better if you don't cut your lawn so
I was thinking the same thing.
So
It's
short.
low.
leave a little?
I think I would have to know what species of grass you have, because depending on how deep the grass roots go, and obviously you don't need much height to protect it. It's more so about ground coverage, and as he said, some sort of light canopy. You don't need to have it, yay high up to my knee, but it's good to have some sort of protection and just a little give at the top so that it can flop over and protect the soil.
Right. And don't get me wrong, runoff is good in its own way, in its context. But you don't want it to take in material with it that it shouldn't be, which is soil and which is any type of fertilizer, any type of chemicals. You don't want it to go with it. But runoff itself is not bad. It's a natural occurrence. But you don't want it to take stuff that it don't belong to it. Water is water, let it go on by its business. But at the same time, the main thing is like landscape yards. We always thought yards were for beautification, home cosmetics and stuff, but that ain't what grass is for in your yard. The main primary function of it is to protect the soil, have some type of cover on it. That's the main purpose, and you get the cosmetic, that's secondary cosmetic benefits, but the primary objective is to prevent that ground from eroding, prevent soil erosion.
And we're talking about, you were talking about your yard and a lawnmower, but there are other ways to cut grass, like animals, and livestock, and having them overeat, overgraze is a real problem too.
All right, so what you all have in front of you is a copy of the lab results from soil testing provided by Mississippi State University. Now, this particular soil sample is near and dear to my heart because this is actually the foundation for my research during my master's. I printed this specific one, or I sent it to them to print to let you all know they don't just give you random numbers. We don't just tell y'all to do this just to have a nice pretty sheet of paper. This is real world application. They use this to back scientific research. So in this particular case, as you can see at the top, if we start from the crop line, we just chose 91 cold vegetables. For those that are unaware of cold vegetables, that's your broccolis, your cabbages, et cetera, et cetera. In this case, we were growing cabbage. We specified that vegetable so that they would know what we're trying to grow and give us the proper amendments to add to our soil to make sure that we have the best crop possible. So you can see here, you have your soil pH. Ours was a 6.4, slightly acidic, but nothing too concerning. You had our phosphorus levels. They give you the number as well as the overall rating as far as very high, low, etc. Ours, very high. This was a new research plot that we had started relatively 2 years before I started working on it. So it was full of soil amendments. They were trying to jumpstart it to get it back into active production. So all of ours are very high for the first 2 to 3 years of my research. Then it started to mellow out into more normal levels that were acceptable. The very high in itself isn't the worst thing in the world, but you still don't want to have too many nutrients because at some point you're getting diminishing returns on your actual crop growth. If you see, this has pH, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, zinc, and calcium. This is the standard soil test, I believe. No, I don't believe. I talked to him yesterday, so I know. Is currently $10. I believe it's a $2 charge if you want to add nitrogen to it. We were adding it because we were specifically looking at that from a scientific standpoint. But this will give you your general outline of what's in your field and what you need to add. You'll see at the bottom it says soil test results indicate the pH of the soil is slightly acidic and no lime was recommended. Under that, they give you the approximate date that you should apply the fertilizer and the specific blend you should apply. In this case, we had 13, 13, 13, so 13% nitrogen, 13% phosphorus, 13% potassium. That's the blend that they recommended to us. Then at the bottom, furthermore.
What does that mean?
The three numbers?
The 13, 13, 13. What are the ratios? What does that mean?
You'll have in any place, Walmart, Kroger has them, Lowe's, your bags of fertilizer are always going to have three numbers across the front. In this case, we had 13, 13, 13. It's talking about the percentage and concentration of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, respectively. So they might tell you, like I say, you got triple 13. Sometimes you only need two things. They'll give you a double 13. It just depends on what you specifically need, and it refers also to the concentration. As you were saying, let's just use lime for an example. You don't want to use the wrong type of lime for the project that you're working on. You want to make sure the things you're using line up with your time frame and your specific land use. So in this case, they just gave us 7.5, 13, 13, 13. And then they tell you how to apply the fertilizer based on their recommendations. Apply all above fertilizers in a pre-broadcast application. Then it goes in detail, tells you what to do for broccoli, what to do for Brussels sprouts and collards, what to do for cabbage. So depending on what you're trying to grow, not only will they give you the recommendation, they will tell you how you should add it to get the most out of it for that particular crop. So it's very, very simple. And every company that does these, it looks a little different. I had this one, it just tells you very high. I had another one, I can't remember the company, but they're out of Vicksburg. Theirs is a bar graph with colors on it, you know, real pretty green, yellow, and red. But all of them more or less are just going to give you your base nutrients, your pH, and tell you what you can do to improve, or if you're already at an acceptable level for what you're trying to grow. Yes, ma'am. Delaney, that's you.
Side dress, when you already hit your rows and you already have your crop is growing up, and then you have another type of plow or some type of tillage device where it goes along the sides of the rows, edge of the rows, and then apply fertilizer, whether it's nitrogen, some type of potash or whatever. After the seeds are already planted, the crop is already started to grow, then you go along on the sides of the rows and then you distribute a fertilizer. Right.
In this case, it's nitrogen.
So it's not applied right on top of the.
Not right on top, but right along the sides, right where the crest, kind of along the sides. And then the roots will be able to go out, and where that fertilizer is located, then those roots will go out and try to adapt it. You don't want to put it right on the roots, I'm saying. If you put it right on the roots, it'll be toxic. So you side dress it to get the roots time to find it instead of it finding the roots.
That you put all the fertilizer out at once?
It's side dressing, you put that whole field.
Well, so when you get a reading on something like this, would you go and say, hey, I'm going to do all my fertilizer all in one pass?
No, you do it based upon the age of the crop. You don't do it when they first start sprouting. You wait till 2 to 3 weeks after that.
All right, so you might have multiple installations of the fertilizer.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
In fact, in this one, it tells you side dress at 2 to 3 weeks with an additional 3 pounds of 3400 nitrogen, and then side dress again at 4 to 6 weeks with another 3 pounds.
Right.
So you may have to do multiple passes to ensure everything. And at the bottom, I think is my favorite tip. If needed, according to the weather, because they know where we are, you might have to apply an additional 2 to 3 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, 5 to 6 weeks later. So you leave room for you to say, I would set aside a little budget to include this just in case you do need it.
Well, and what it's telling you, you don't just put the whole application down at one time. You're going to make it toxic to the plants. They're going to the roots will get there and they'll become it'll burn them. It'll cause them to I guess stop. They'll shut down. They'll just shut down because they can't tolerate that amount of volume of fertilizer at one time. And plus, that's chemicals. That's a commercial fertilizer. They're not natural fertilizers.
Right.
So you got to be careful on the application of volume and timing.
Now, I've got a couple more questions, if y'all mind. Okay, unless you have a question. Yes, ma'am. You go first.
I usually don't fare well with these kinds of questions, these types of things, but I favor organic gardening unless there's like a really critical point where I would have to need to use a fertilizer to save something or whatever. But typically you don't find organic fertilizers in these formulations like 34, so what is the organic, someone who's trying to not use chemical-based fertilizer do when they receive instructions
This
like
type
this?
of it. I'm not sure what to do about potassium.
Yeah, organic, you have a whole different set of guidelines to go by once you become an organic grower. This is not because you're not supposed to be using fertilizer to begin with. But you do need to get your soil tested. Now, that's still needed. But as far as following these guys, it's a different set of guidelines you follow if you're organic.
Is it available, the guidelines available somewhere, or is I have to do my own research? I mean, because I have some stuff, I have books, but I'm just saying.
You have
I haven't
extension.
come across a definitive, this is what you do, and you know what I mean? This would be, this is how much you put.
I see with that, I would reach out to Extension.
Extension?
I'm sure if there are some guidelines that are printed on paper that are easy to follow, Mississippi State Extension will definitely have them. I would reach out to them.
So one of the things I was going to ask about that, but this also really ties into this too, is part of the idea of cover cropping is organic. Right. It is an organic practice. Because you want to ask the question, well, I've been cover cropping all this time. I had all this stuff. So should I use the same amount of fertilizer? Or might I build up some nitrogen credits from the cover crops? So I might have to use half the amount of fertilizer that is recommended because I've already got credit for it in the field.
Right. I know when you fill out it's not an application, the box for the soil test, it does ask you what is the current land use. So it takes into consideration whether it's a pasture, commercial crop field, or as you said, a cover crop. Okay. And they use that to help with their calculations to give you a more proper estimate of what to add. So it does take it into play when you're actually getting your soil test.
Okay, so the new tests do that for Mississippi State?
Yeah, on the box it'll be like land use and you can put cover crop, et cetera.
Gotcha. And what about circumstances where you might be, let's say, using drip irrigation and you want to fertigate? And does everybody know what the term fertigate
The
means?
liquid, you want to inject it into the.
You wanna do that. Yeah, how do you space it out there? Is it the same thing, you side dress, or do you have more options about when and how you deliver that food?
Now side dress is these are more for open land type of production. And as far as the irrigation and all the other different effects, then it does not address that because it's more or less for open land type of cropping systems. So.
But while we're on that topic, I learned that with the last ag conference I went to, a lot of the organic farmers, more so out in the Midwest, are starting to do what they call a compost tea.
Yeah.
So essentially, we all know the compost, tumble around, let the material decay. They're putting that in those big blue water gallons and letting those soak and using that as a liquid fertilizer. And we've had some pretty good looks from those organic farmers as far as boosting their production. And like you say, kind of staying as natural as you can.
And then the fish emulsion, make a tea with that.
Absolutely.
Like that. But I do have a technical question.
Yes.
You're talking about side dressing, but I'm a visual learner. So is it this or is it this when you're side dressing? Like, if you have a row crop and you have that furrow next to it, are you just doing a continuous sprinkle of it, or is it per?
Continuous down that furrow along. If this is your row, and then you have your furrows on either side, you have your distribution equipment that comes right down those center rows, come right down the center, and then your fertilizer is applied away from your plants, away from your roots, and then it goes out to find the fertilizer, and then therefore you do not do any damage to the fertilizer until the roots are ready to accept the fertilizer. But it's continuous,
Downhill first.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you have these numbers in your head? Okay, well, we can flip back and forth. I can't see that at the same time on my screen, but you got them on the handout. Even better. All right. So what I'm moving over here is a fertilizer calculator, and still doing some updates on this, and it's a little big right now, but we had that question just a second ago about calculating and where can you find something like that. Man. Okay.
We're getting there.
Still, everybody's gonna be patient. So they're saying that he better be worth it. Better be something good. We're showing. Okay. All right. I think it probably is. We'll see. So you were using broccoli, right?
We had cabbage, but we just put cold vegetables.
All right. So I was just gonna see if we could
Get it in there.
possibly. Man, it does not want to do that.
Every time you want to show off, it stops you.
That's right. It does. It definitely does that. All right. I don't know why it's.
I'm looking at it. It's so funny.
I don't know why it's doing that, but it's okay. Well, we're gonna work with bell peppers right now. Okay, but if we want to do something like that, coming off a soil test, you want to give us some examples? We can use that, or.
If it let you click anywhere, he was mad at you, boss.
It was just a second ago before I moved it over to the screen.
It's shy.
I don't know what's going on. Okay, a second. Okay, well, never mind. We may have to come back and.
All right. I can see what you're going for, though. You're going to input the vegetable up top at the crop, and then
Yes.
base the numbers based on the specific crop to help give us, like you said, some sort of calculator.
Let's see if it's working
These
now.
little comments at the top.
Yeah. So okay, let's see if it's working now. No, it's not. It's not letting me It's not letting me click on that one field for some reason. I can change these numbers though. And it was letting me do this a second ago, but I don't know why it's not now. I don't know why. It may be because the Excel sheet is too small. Let's see if that was it. No, that's not it. Nope. All right. Well, forget I ever showed you this thing.
No.
Pretend this never happened.
I will not.
Well, we know it is a certain tool that's in that.
This is a certain tool, and basically, these are the different crops that it shows, and it's got different chemicals that it's got formula built in here, and all of the. You were talking about the animal fertilizer types and organic fertilizers. Yeah, that's why I was. Specifically what I was trying to show you. The whole reason I was trying to bring this out was to show you, yes, this is a calculator that...
How can I access that?
I'll send it to you when I get that working. Yes. Actually, we're going to put this whole thing online as well for everybody. Yeah. And I promise it does actually work.
I believe you.
God, man.
You were too excited to lie about it.
All right, back to the to this.
I must say, that's pretty much all we had, just going over how to interpret it. And like you say, hope the calculator is going to give us some extra. All of it's mostly the same. It's just when we were doing it for research, of course, we had our RCBD for those randomized complete block design when we were doing the research. So we just got one for every plot that we were doing because we were testing different fertilizers. I think we had poultry litter, cow manure, and a mix of the two. And we're just looking at the impacts of that. And what we found, poultry litter by far gave us the most yield benefit, but boy, will it raise your pH. It will mess up the pH and it'll add a lot of sodium to your soil. So you gotta be careful when you're using poultry litter. You have to do it in moderation.
So I do think that's an interesting thing, and that is something that's similar to a lot of NRCS practices that you can get. We try to talk about this at every workshop. The way NRCS works, correct me anytime I'm wrong, please. But the way NRCS works is they say Natural Resource Conservation Service is what it stands for. There are 43, I think, resource concerns that they look at. They're air quality, water quality, soil quality, water quantity, aquatic habitat, lots of things, greenhouse gas emissions as well too. There are lots of things like this. All right, so then they have practices that you can apply for and you can potentially get that they will cost share with you. They will pay a good percentage of the cost of you implementing that practice on your farm. So every practice that they have, and there are about 165 practices, something like that, they each practice, they look at all 43 of those resource concerns. It says, okay, on a scale of -5 to +5, how does this impact air quality? How does this impact rill erosion, wind erosion? It looks at each of those things and rates it from -5 to +5. +5 being a good thing, -5 being a bad thing. So there are very few practices, but there are very few practices that are 100% completely positive within all of that. There's some that score negative. High tunnels are an example. If you guys are familiar with high tunnels, they score positively on plant productivity, but they introduce erosion. So it scores negatively on erosion and it scores negatively on salt that it introduces into the system. So that means if you're interested in that practice of a high tunnel, you're also going to need to work with other practices that offset those negatives. That would then help control the salt or help control the erosion, right? So, and some of those may have things too. So you end up with a package of like 3, 4, maybe 6 practices sometimes that you need to install on your farm. So it's always coming back and having you think about it as an ecosystem. But your farming is no different. And it really is it's sometimes a confusing, but it is a useful model to think of your farm that way too. There are going to be pros and cons of almost everything. There's almost nothing that's 100% good or 100%. Some things may be 100% bad, but most of the things that you're going to practice will require some kind of offsets, in choices. You'll be making choices along the way, and that's just something to take into consideration.
I'm gonna say to go on for a real world application of what he just said about how we combine practices. Let's say we have somebody, they have a nice perimeter fence around their house, and they want to get some cross fences in between their property to make different grazing cells for their livestock or whatever they have. So we would have the practice of the cross fence itself. To go alongside that, we'd have a rotational grazing practice to assist with that. And then more than likely, we would have a water facility practice to make sure each one of those different grazing cells has a clean water supply. So we would mix all three of those together into the packet, which is a conservation plan, to make sure we're not just addressing one thing and making three other problems. We're mixing 3 or 4 things together to make a better unit overall for your production.
Yes, and that's a good point. And when you go in to apply for these practices, you want to have that combination. You want to be able to convey, communicate to that personnel in that office, that conservationist, that you want those 3 in order to help improve your livestock, improve your pastoral grazing land operation. So don't just go in and ask for one and just tell them, what do you have? And you tell them. That's what we want to get today for. To have enough information and understanding to talk sensibly and understand your land and resource concerns, as David mentioned, and be able to go in and request that assistance at that office. And that's why we're here today.
Whether you know what you want or don't know what you want, we'll have to get a field office employee, whichever county you're located in or the property is located in. They'll come out, walk with you, go over the property, and they'll look for resource issues or resource concerns, and we'll help you formulate, all right, I think you should have planting here. I think you could deal with some type of erosion, ramification or rehabilitation, however you want to put it, here. I think you could do with a levee or so here. A levee pond might work better, or we need to crash that and do a dug pond. They'll help you go through what we look for and help you formulate what would best suit your operation. So you don't have to know everything when you come in. It helps when you have some knowledge, but either way, we're going to do our best to help to get you the service you require and help you get the most out of your land. And I do have cards if anybody needs NRCS work. I'll get y'all in touch with the right people. I'll come to you.
And these are some practices up here that you want to look at for NRCS for soil health. So these are some of the major practices.
Thank you.
There you go. There you go.
And then there are, and we'll make this material available to everyone. And then there are some supporting practices.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and stay tuned because we have a lot more information to be able to deliver. And we have to do it in a series of times because there's so many hours in the day. So we try to make sure.
Well, this is that slide that talks about this is basically infiltration right here. Right? When water is coming straight down. But this is percolation right here.
What's the difference we just described? What's the difference between percolation and infiltration? Infiltration.
Let's back up and we'll show that again. All right, infiltration.
Water moving down. Okay.
All right.
Percolation. saturating that whole zone, yeah, yeah. And how do you get good percolation? What the soil type condition need to be in order for good percolation? Yeah, cover creates good pore space and good aeration, and so allows water to permeate through that zone. And everything that, and now,
Can we get that? Can you go back there? I want to-
Which one?
Irrigation,
This one?
filtration, and
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Here we go.
Well, this is PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
Is this available on the site, on your farm?
We're gonna make a video. We got all the cameras here and stuff, and we're gonna make videos of all of this material. And we'll have the slides built into it as well. But we'll make the slides available. Did you get that? Okay. There was one last thing that I just remember in here that if I can find that, I found it really interesting. It kind of shows what we did earlier today in the outside. There it was. This is the idea of, Delaney preaches this all the time. You know, have living roots year round. If you look at those different kinds of growing, and then you look at the infiltration of the water and the depths of the roots, you know, between conventional and no-till and cover crop rotation, and perennial, it's huge. It's huge. That's what is really going on beneath your feet.
yeah. It's a good slide, yeah.
But you guys have been a terrific class today. You know, thank y'all so much for coming. Really, really appreciate your being here. We're here to answer questions. Everybody is. I know you got contact information. We can come out to farms, you know, help you assess and everything like that too.
Thank y'all.
Man.
Okay then.
And if you would like to, you can walk over here for a second and just give some thoughts about, you know, what you learned today, and you know, what you liked or what you'd like to see differently, you know, anything like that. So we love your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Look, your time is precious. Thank you.